Yo, 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 what is up? How's everybody doing? I am super excited for this chapter. I wanted to review it earlier, but it was my anniversary this weekend. Well, not this weekend, next weekend, but I won't be able to do it next weekend. So, we ended up enjoying it this weekend. So, if you're new here, again, my name is Nerdtaku. And I read the chapter live, and this is my live reaction. I haven't gotten spoiled on anything per se. I've seen some just quick glances of spoilers, and I just scroll away before reading, or my brain has a chance to do anything. And I'm reading the official release from Viz, and it is right down here in this corner with my logo being transparent, and I am going to read through this, and we're going to get through it together. So, I'll read it one page at a time. Follow along and let me know your thoughts as we read. Please, no spoilers if I'm not there, and we'll talk afterwards. All right. So, we have chapter 1172, The Elbaf I Dreamed of. And we have a cover story of the reader request, Swans Helping Themselves to Bon Clay's Makeup by Pizamaru. Interesting. Listen, it's always good to see the goat. Always good to see the goat. So, I'm excited for that. Who knows? Maybe this is a precursor to us seeing Bon Clay back in the story. I'm all about it. So, not too much with this one. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Let's jump into it. Okay, so we are back. We are back to them taking the boats up to the Sun Realm. And so they are on the way up the tree, and Gabon says, "Our foes number 3, and their mission is to kidnap 10 giant children." Well, stuff has changed. So, hopefully when they get up there, they realize the Domi Reversi people are probably kind of popping off. And it says they mean to take the children to the Holy Land and use them as hostages. And Harujin says to coerce the warriors of Elbaf into being their battle slaves. Okay. Very interesting. I think they're going to find that stuff has changed. And then it says, how can a mere trio of humans run rampant over both the giant pirates and Mr. Ya? And he's like, it's like ... And it's like, I'm sorry, I've failed you, plain and simple. And Sanji says, you say children, but these are giants, right? How are 3 humans our size going to carry these giant kids? And Gabon says, the woman of the trio has a strange power. Using arrows, it seems that wherever these arrows point, the children are helpless to resist them. And it says, they are walking ceaselessly toward the port in the western village. If they get to the boat, they can lose us at sea. And then it's all over. That's the true end point of the situation. Okay, we got Rajan. How do I say that? Rajubai Flisky. Welcome. He says, this is my first time watching this, but love you, bro. And then he said, I just completed this chapter today. Do you know when the new chapter will come? I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a break week. I don't believe there's a break week. I haven't seen anything saying that there is a break week. So I'd imagine if you read the unofficial, probably Thursday, Friday. But if you read the official translation, it comes out every Sunday. That there's not a break week. So let's keep it going. So Gabon's just laying out their plan. Did I miss something? No. Okay. Yeah, but there's 3, there's 4. Okay. And then it says, but if a man with the power of the thorn fruit as a thorn man, he makes free use of vicious spikes, spiky vines. I know him, unfortunately. One of the 3 is named a man named Sommers. And Roto says, but if that's all, then why can we not simply take the children back? And then he said, Gabon says, he can make them invisible too, and has wrapped them. Excuse me. Wrapped them around the children. And Gerd says, and that means we can't simply pick them up. How sadistic. And he says, aye, and they're as hard as steel. If we interfere with the line of children, they'll bump into each other and harm one another like hedgehogs. And Gabon says, on top of that, the final member of the trio is most likely manifesting nightmares as real creatures. The children's greatest fears have come to life to prevent any attempt to save them. I mean, they got broken powers for sure. And then it says, the irony is the children are simply walking in a line in broad daylight, but we're unable to do a thing to help them. Hardin, and it says, all due to the game created by 3 powers working together. And Hardin says, not so, we will save them. And it says, seems quicker to aim for the 3 causing all the problems. You say they're immortal, but there has to be a way to stop them. Like trapping them in something, or crushing them, or eating them. And it says, haha, yeah, I agree with that. And then they said, we're nearly up to the sun world. And so they're all ready, and it's like it stops, and they're like, whoa, huh? Oh, this is a double spread, it looks like. And they see a dragon, and they see a knight, and it's like they're fighting. And it says, it's beyond anything I imagined. Is there no limit to these nightmare monsters? And someone says, look over there. Is that the great Eric? And it says, Dory and Broggy's crew was on board, but the monsters downed the ship as they fought back. Unthinkable. And all of a sudden, it looks like Kashi. And it says, is that Haradin? It says, Kashi, you're alive. We've been down in the underworld. Tell us what's happening. And he says, it's hard to believe, but I'll try to explain. Dang, this is kind of a crazy scene right now. Are they fighting each other? Like the nightmares? Like there's the Nika one with the sword and the shield. Then there's like this horned knight with a sword. There's like a devil with like a hat. Kind of looks like the Sasha Boys. And then another knight. There's like a Fenrir, a dragon, like a griffin, or like a lion with wings. And then there's like a giant, almost looks like a frost giant with like a one eye. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot going on. And then there's the cloud that was after Frankie. So that makes me wonder what's going on with that. This is kind of going crazy. Okay, we'll go back to single page at a time since it's not a double spread. It says Captains Dory and Broggy are going to kill Chief Yarul. And it says you have to stop them. Everyone's gone completely mad. And Gerd says, what about the children, Kashi? And Kashi says, Ripley's got a group chasing after them, but we haven't had any word about success or not. They should have reached the port by now. And then Kashi says, and you, Roto. And he says, what about me? And it says, Bjorn's there. And he's like, and he starts running and he says, I have to go. My brother is one of the hostages. And it says, Roto. And Gerd says, I'll go with him. And then so does, what's his name? He says, yeah, me too. And Sanji says, hey, Kashi, which way is the school? Apparently Nami's group is near it. And he says, you see that fire? That's the school and the library burning. And he says, why are they on fire? And Zoro says, you say that Dory and Broggy have gone mad? That's right. Yo, this shit is popping off. And he says, please, you must hurry. Chief Yarul's life is in danger. And it says, this is their current location right here. And here's the school and Yar library. This is probably where the Straw Hats are right here. Here's the kids walking. And here's the demons going to pack up Yarul. And then there's the port. Ugh. It says the Walrus School and Owl Library. And so we see that it's on fire and they're all just watching. And then it says, by the library, the Straw Hat crew. And they're like, the library's burning. And Jinbei says, Chopper's still not back. And Brook got some kind of idea in his head and ran off. And it says, they're taking the children. Get these arrows off me. And then Usopp says, damn it, I never wanted to see Master Dory and Master Broggy like that. And it says, under the power of the Domi Reversi, the giant pirate's head for the Western Village. And we see them say, kill Yarul. And it says, Captain, please stop. Come back to your senses. Okay. And here is Ridley's team going over here. It says rescue team. We're coming for you kids. Get those monsters out of the way. And then it says the hostage children, which are like danger close to the port. And it says the hostage children, we're going to be at the port soon. And then and it says, don't whine, you're warriors of Elbaf. And it says, but we're not warriors. And then it says the Western Village. No, you should flee if you wish. It's time to flee, Chief Yarul. There's no reasoning with Captain Dory and Broggy right now. And he says, I will stay. I have something to say to Elbaf. Interesting. So he gets on the snail and it says, Hear me, Elbaf. I wish to tell you everything before I die. And then it says, Is that Chief Yarul? He says, Our old liege, wise King Harold, wished to bring Elbaf into the world government so that we might coexist with the rest of the world. And then you see Gunko Emu with the 3 dots. And it says, But on that fateful day, 14 years ago, he was betrayed and denied his wish. And one of the giants says, Chief Yarul. He said, I witnessed a demon slaughter Harold and the rest of his soldiers. Harold resisted bending the knee and handing over Elbaf to that demon. He fought and he died. And then they were like, what? I thought Loki killed the king. And it says, but if the people learned the truth, they would rise up in vengeance and become the warfaring nation that Harold did not desire. So I held my silence. And then it says, Loki, meanwhile, bore the rage of the nation upon his back and took to the sea. And everyone's shocked, which, if you found out everything you learned was a lie, probably feel the same way. It's so interesting that he's telling it this way, because he's saying, I witnessed a demon slaughter Harold. But that's not what happened. He's recounting things in a different way because this way it doesn't disparage Harold's memory, because if he were to have just straight up been like, yes, this is what happened. Harold basically forfeited his soul to Emu and was being controlled and slaughtered everyone, it would show Harold in a very negative light. And although that is what happened, that's not what Yarl wishes the people of Elbaf knew. He wants to show them, he wants to keep Harold's legacy intact while also absolving Loki. And this is the way that he thought of doing it, in a way that puts the blame on the person who actually took control and basically flips the narrative in a way that everyone gets to have their moment. Harold gets to go down as a good guy fighting back. Emu gets to be placed as the villain that he is, and Loki gets absolved of his crimes. And apparently was done for a good reason, right? Because he didn't want the people to rise up in vengeance. But it makes sense. So anyway, Loki, meanwhile, bore the rage of the nation upon his back and took to the sea. He may be a tactless man, but Loki is innocent. And someone says, what? And Zoro is like, a bit inaccurate, but a nice turn of phrase. And Hardian says, nicer than he deserves. I mean, really, though? Come on, bro. Where were you? Oh, we got another double spread. And then it says, but today it seems that though they had given up initially, they once again require our massive power. And thus 3 demons have come back in an attempt to take our... excuse me. In an attempt to take over our country. And Summers goes, yawn. I could take a nap and still complete the mission at this point. It is cool though. You see Killingham is just... hold on. Let's zoom in on Killingham. We really, I really can't see it. I can't see if he has gills from this angle. But anyway, Killingham looks dope. I like the way he looks. Especially, his hybrid form is interesting. It's kind of like a centaur, but like... a centaur? Yeah, right? Half man, half horse. And then Emu Gunko looking crazy like normal. And then Sommers is just a doucher. It says, listen up, you devils. If you spare the children's lives, we will freely give up our culture and history. But if you think you've broken our spirit, you are sorely mistaken. Do not expect Harold's patience from us. And the giants are on the ground. It says, you think you can rule over us and enslave us? Who do you think you're talking to? Who do you think you're talking to? And then Emu Gunko's just like, ... And then it says, I'm sorry, children. I must ask you to cover your ears now. And Usopp says, that's right, Yarul. You tell him. The Elbaf I dreamed of doesn't bow to anyone. Yarul says, if the world is destined to be split in two, as the Harley's prophecy suggests... then Elbaf shall be an enemy to the world government. Interesting. And it says, did you think that thorns, reversey, and illusions would cause us to submit to your yoke? And Zoro's like, I like that, old man. Hardin says, 3 centuries ago, he was the strongest man on this sea. And it says, we will never give in to your rule. Am I wrong, all you proud warriors of Elbaf? Everyone's just cheering. And it says, you're damn right, Chief Yarul. And Usopp's like, oh, the Elbaf I love is back. And then it's fucking, now he's like, fine. Just think of a way to undo these arrows. And it says, protect the peace that Harold envisioned. And they all start charging back as Dory and Broggy show up to fight Yarul. And then we see Hardin and them, and they're like, we've caught up. Watch out that they don't trap you between them. And Zoro says, I've got a plan. Interesting stuff here. All right, and that is the end. But that makes sense. I like it. You know? Let me see something here. see. Because I just want to see. Because usually when other people do like fan translations and stuff like that, um, they put whether or not it is a break week or not. So let me see here. Let's see, shall we? Okay, yep. So it looks like there's no break week, so we should be getting a chapter come this Thursday, Friday for fan translations, and then Sunday for official. But yeah, so that that was a good chapter. So let's see here. We'll run through it. Fan thing, cool. Love to see Bon Clay. It's very much an establishment chapter. So you get them talking basically about like where everyone's at, what everyone's doing. You see Gabon talking about it. I really wish Gabon would have had this conversation with Sanji and Zoro while they were here. Like, hey, these guys, especially because they even say something like, what was it? Hardin says about them being immortal. Where is it? Am I crazy? It said that, right? I feel like I'm losing my mind, right? Three, unfortunately, Thorndor Man makes him free to use his spikes. He can make them invisible, blah, 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 interfere with the children. On top of that, the trio is most likely manifesting the night creatures the children's fear. The irony is the children walk in broad daylight. All due to the game they created with their three powers. Oh, here. It says, you say they're immortal, but there has to be a way to stop them. Like tripping them or trapping them in something or crushing them or eating them. And then he says, haha, yes, I agree with that. And then it says, we're nearly up to the Sun Realm. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this to me is like, the minute he brings up the immortal thing, he should be like, okay, this is how you stop their immortality, or at least slow it up. It's like you need to bum rush them. You need to basically just overwhelm them with your hockey, whether it be conquerors, armament, whatever. Like, you need to obliterate them, and then they'll take time to reestablish themselves, and then you can take care of them that way. Like, that to me is like bare minimum what you should be saying. Like, so just slightly annoyed that we didn't get more information on that, especially because, Gabon kind of said it when they were down there in the underworld, like, hey, make sure you're like keeping track of your conquerors and unleashing it right. And then they were like, what does that mean? And then they just never glossed over it. So that's interesting. Them kind of getting the brief and then showing up to what is even more chaotic than what they thought. Kind of cool. And then Roto being like, my brother is one of the hostages. I'm fucking outie. And then it's interesting. So Zoro, Hardin, and I think Stanzin are all going to fight Dorian Broggy. And then it looks like Sanji is heading towards the fire with the other group. And then the other three giant warrior pirates are heading towards the kids. As well as, I hope, Gabon. I feel like Gabon's heading with them. So... and this speech by Yarul is really good. And him just like... Yeah, because they just came up from here, right? So Sanji and... Sanji's probably heading to the school and the library to release the Straw Hats. And then that's where Killingham is. Then Zoro, Stanzin, and Hardin are heading to help Chief Yarul. And then we got Rotogerd, Goldberg, and probably Gabon. You know what? Sanji and Chopper are probably heading towards the Straw Hats. Then Gabon, Goldberg, Gerd, and Roto are probably heading towards the kids. So it's interesting. So it looks like Sanji's going to be near Killingham. Zoro is going to be near Emu Gunko. And then it looks like the other giant warrior pirates are going to be near, and Gabon are going to be near the kids, which is where Sommers is, I believe. So, interesting. Because when we look here, yeah, Zoro's riding on Hardin. I do love this speech. It's very good. Yeah, I like this page here because it shows like Killingham in his hybrid form. And then you see the Sleep Tids. Then you see Emu Gunko with like the Domi reverses. And then you see more Sleep Tids with Sommers. So yeah, very interested to see what happens here with Zoro. He looks like he's about to pop out. If I was a betting man, and you know, I've known Oda the way he writes for a long time. You know, since I started reading One Piece after I first saw the first episodes in America. So if I was a betting man, so this is really a build chapter. I think next chapter we see Hardin and Zoro kind of fighting Dory and Broggy. Um, and I think what's going to end up happening is Sanji is going to free the Straw Hats, and they're going to be like, all right, let's fucking get this shit under control, and they're going to disperse and start heading towards different things to put out the fire, to help out with the kids, and so on and so forth. And I think that all this is going to be happening, and at the very end of the chapter, you're going to see Luffy and Loki fly up from the underworld, and they're going to like stop something. I feel like Loki's going to show up and just start piecing up Dory and Broggy. And then Luffy's probably going to come up and just start boxing Emu, or something like that. Like I pray that those are the two things. It would be super cool to see them show up, like pop out of nowhere, and like Luffy just like gear fiving it up, just start attacking Emu, and Emu be like, "Oh my god, it's Joy Boy!" Like, and then have like awakened form, like hybrid form Loki, just start destroying Dory and Broggy. You know, like that would be so cool. So that's my hope. But then it's probably gonna end there, and then we're probably gonna get a break week if I was a betting man. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking for next chapter. This chapter is really a build chapter, and it definitely had like some really good moments. It's not like 10 out of 10 amazing, but it was a good chapter. I'd say it's probably sitting, if I were to give it like an honest score, I'd say this is probably about a 7. It was good. It wasn't the greatest thing I've ever written or read, right? But I mean, so many good things, and like I really hope that these are the moments where like Usopp is commenting on this being the Elbaf that he wanted to see, and I hope that this is him being like, yes, like this is the Elbaf that I wanted. Now I'm going to, you know, I'm gonna love this Elbaf. Like that, I'm gonna start showing out now because I'm seeing it. As soon as Sanji frees all of them, it's like boom, you know. So really happy to see this. This is really cool, and it's really building towards something great. And like we're just getting started into 2026. This year, I think Elbaf is gonna go crazy. So that's just my thoughts. You know, this chapter was good, not great. It was like a 7. I like to reserve my higher grades for other things that are more peak. Like this is really just building towards what I believe the next few chapters are going to be, because we're about to see you know Luffy possibly boxing Gunko Emu. We're gonna see Sanji maybe unlock Conqueror's Haki. We're gonna see Zoro finally applying Conqueror's Haki in a meaningful way and go off. We're gonna see Loki probably awakened, hybrid and full Zoan transformations. We're gonna see him utilizing Ragnar like a fucking monster. We might even get like a Haruden Loki Hikoku sovereignty. So there's going to be a lot of hype moments that are like right at our doorstep, possibly. So that's why, like, I'm not giving this that like amazing seal of approval, but I know we're getting there. So super hyped for what is to come. this chapter's good, and I'm ready for the next one. So, um, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Am I off base? What do you think the chapter was rated at? Anything, you know. I always say it, when people roll in, people talk. I love talking One Piece, and One Piece is better as a conversation. So yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts, and I will be back here next week, probably around the same time, just because I got other stuff going on next weekend. So I'll probably be reading the official on either like Sunday night or Monday. So I'm excited to be back then, and I can't wait for what is in store. It's going to be good. We might get a break week after next chapter, but who knows? Oda might be just cooking so much that he's just going to keep rolling with it. So, either way, I'm cool. So, anyway, I will see you guys next time.